but the Chop House located in the downstairs portion. I don't want to say the basement. That doesn't sound.
No, so it's actually the original substructure of the original Blackstone Hotel. So it's actually not quite a basement, but it's still kind of dungeony like a basement. Yeah.
Dungeony.
Yes. Yeah,
that's the word we're going with.
Yeah,
okay. Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and Nebraska is obviously known for its beef, and we have several steakhouses in Omaha that have burnished their reputations over decades. They're well known, they are beloved. So for a new steakhouse to come in and throw itself right into that conversation with the best of the best, it really needs to stand out, and that is precisely what the Committee Chophouse has done since it opened in December of 2020. And I wanted to talk to a couple of the guys who've been very responsible for taking this place and immediately inserting it into Omaha's elite steakhouses. So we've got Jason Sirois, Brandon Kalfut with me today. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Okay, so because we have multiple voices on the show, I would love for each of you to start off by introducing yourself and your role and title at the Committee Chophouse.
Well, Big Boss, you go first.
Sure thing. I'm Jason Sirois. I'm the executive chef at the Cottonwood Hotel.
I'm Brandon Kalfut. I am the executive sous chef, formerly the CDC or chef de cuisine of the committee.
Okay, so just as we're introducing this here, the Committee Chophouse, which is primarily what we're going to be talking about today. We can talk a little bit about the Orleans Room and just the other food offerings at the committee, at the Cottonwood Hotel. But the Chop House located in the downstairs portion. I don't want to say the basement. That doesn't sound.
No, so it's actually the original substructure of the original Blackstone Hotel. So it's actually not quite a basement, but it's still kind of dungeony like a basement. Yeah.
Dungeony.
Yes. Yeah,
that's the word we're going with.
Yeah,
okay.
I would lean it more towards like dark and romantic. But, I mean, for us, for those of us that are in the back downstairs all the time, it can be kind of a dungeon without any windows, but we make it work.
Fair enough. So, but before we even get into the history of the place, steak, any of that, I want to talk about you guys because I think that you guys have a rich history as friends. And actually, Jason, you came on the podcast a couple of years ago and you name dropped Brandon and said, this guy is not only a really talented chef, but he's one of my best friends in the world. What is your relationship like?
Well, I'd say that the Cottonwood and the committee have probably tested that friendship over the last couple of years.
That's true.
We know we still love each other greatly. But, it's been a ride. It's been a roller coaster for sure. When I took over as executive chef, back in 2021, he was my first phone call because I knew that I needed somebody highly capable and passionate about what they do to come in and keep the momentum that we'd previously built going for this great place. So
the urban legend is actually as true as it can be. So when Jason first took over the executive chef job, I was actually working coal power plant maintenance contracts all across the upper north and northwest of Nebraska, and I was living in a trailer park at the time just because it was more convenient for me to travel with. And Jason calls me up and he goes, "Hey man," he's like, "I'm taking over this hotel. I got a restaurant in mind. It's I need your help." And I was just like, "Nope," hung up the phone. and then like a week later he called me and he's like, "Okay, I'm for real." He's like, you need to come back to Omaha. I could really use your help. Like, we got a really cool thing here and I would love to get your input on it. And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good." And then a week later, he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "Why don't you come to Omaha and let's hang out? We haven't seen each other in a while." And then he sat me down in front of the GM, and then he's like, "Why don't you just come in on this Friday night service and, just see what you got going on and see if you like the restaurant." And I showed up on Friday, and he goes, "Hey, I got some fish in. You want to just do something with it, run a little special?" And then the next day, he put me on the schedule, and I was never allowed to leave. So,
he just kept reeling you in slowly.
I'll never forget, we were sitting in the Orleans room with our GM at the time and a few other people. And, Brandon had just rolled back into town from driving from South Dakota, and he was wearing like a really ridiculous Hawaiian shirt and shorts and flip-flops. And our old GM looked at me and said, "This is your guy?" I said, "Yeah, it is." But no, we've worked together for a long time. We've opened multiple restaurants together successfully. And it just clicks.
So what makes him the guy? How did you know right away, like, this is the guy that I need? I need to keep working on. Even when he says no, you kept working on him because you were like, this is my dude. I need him here. What is it about Brandon?
Yeah, it's trust. I think, it's just kind of knowing that we were cut from the same cloth when we were coming up as cooks in the industry, and working hard, and creating a good culture, and just really pushing the people that we have coming to work with us to make themselves better. Brandon embodies all of those things, and it's easy for us to work together most of the time. Yeah. We still butt heads, but I think that's all part of it, right? There's a lot of conversations in the walk-in cooler at times between us, and we have windows in our walk-in cooler so everyone can see those things taking place, but they can't hear what we're saying. And I think that just, goes to show, like, we're willing to butt heads, we're willing to argue, but we get through it, and we make decisions that are good for the business, that are good for the restaurant, and that are good for the people that are working there.
How important is it because yes, you're right, in any workplace, there's going to be times where heads butt, and there's going to be disagreements, especially in the kitchen when it's a high intensity, high pressure environment. There are just going to be times when you're going to disagree. But when you have that foundation of a friendship, you have that trust, you have that knowledge that this person is not trying to undermine me. They have my best interests at heart. They just legitimately, disagree with me. Like, when you have that foundation built, how important is that to be able to push through those disagreements and those arguments?
Well, I think for me personally, like Jason and I, we've kind of always embodied this whole work is work, life is life mentality. And with a lot of our staff members over the last 8 years that we've been working together, we try to really focus on pushing that for all of our staff members and all of our people that work with us, because it's important. You should be able to check work at the door, and you should be able to step back into your life once you clock out. And so with conflict, conflict sometimes creates competition, as well as it creates a little bit more of an internal drive to, want to resolve it, or to essentially just, shut them up by showing up, essentially. And so it does a really good job of showing all of our staff members that him and I can butt heads, we can have arguments, we can have disagreements, and then at the end of the day, we still go out and have a drink together, or we go to his backyard and have a little bonfire, and then just don't even talk about work. And then the next day we show up and the conflict's resolved, and we're all better for it. And, no hard feelings after something like that. Yeah.
No matter how long it takes, it's typically you were right, and then we move on, because that's what you have to do. And that's why I think that's how you build on that foundation, right? It's not always going to be easy. So it's just about taking the jabs and keep going.
Okay. Let's get into the Cottonwood, because this is a hotel that is only a couple of years old, but you guys have really helped shape it into something that's really cool. But what's amazing about it is, while this hotel is super young, it's built on the foundations of the Blackstone Hotel, like you guys mentioned, which was around in the 1920s and was a very important landmark in Omaha. What is it like for you guys to be a part of this reinvention? Is there a sense of responsibility that comes with it? This is a jewel of a location. We have a responsibility to take it into the future. Is there any sense of that, or is it more just no, we're just cooking steaks, man?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, right? I mean, we're at heart, we're cooks, right? So ultimately, what's most important to us is the product that we put forward, and and the execution, the consistency, and things like that. But yeah, it's a very special building. It's a beautiful place. A lot of love and reimagination has gone into it. And, we want the restaurants to be a reflection of that. And, having a space like that to bring people into and really kind of show off and make them feel special and they have a great experience is something that's awesome to see. But yeah, ultimately, when it comes down to it, for me, it's, can you come there all the time and get something truly great, and do you want to come back?
Yeah, it's makes our job a lot easier. Having a pretty location, a centralized location, having something that has a massive historical value in the city of Omaha. I mean, the building used to be Kiewit's headquarters before they, completely redid their entire building down in the old market. But I mean, it makes it a lot easier when you have a platform like that, to be able to essentially encourage a level of standard or guest relations with all of our staff members, because you do have that historical. We have pictures all over the basement of all the different celebrities and political figures, like JFK, Marilyn Monroe's been in the building before. They ate at the original restaurant. So it's a lot easier to sit there and just be like, we have something really special here, so we need to make sure that we're focused and that we're producing as good a product as best as we can, and then to just make it as pretty as we can at the end of the day too. So it makes it a lot easier because, if you're working out of a food truck, it's, hard to want to sit there and embody that full capturing of your audience but when you have, beautiful crushed velvet chairs and like this beautiful, imported Italian chandelier, it makes it a lot easier to want to step your game up.
Yeah. I mean, you guys described it as the dungeon, but that restaurant is just absolutely gorgeous. From the minute you step in there, you feel like you're stepping back into the 20s, and it's a pretty cool place. I want to talk about the ambiance later, but first I want to get into the essence of what the restaurant is, because going back and listening to that podcast that I had with you before, Jason, and just doing my research and kind of looking into some of the things that you've said about this place, I kept seeing the same theme again and again. It's modern. It's classic food, but with new techniques. It just that point was so reinforced, is that Omaha has a lot of great classic steakhouses. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily what we want to be. And I think you had this quote right after the Chophouse opened that I think summed it up really well. You said you wanted it to break the barrier of what you know as a classic steakhouse. What, when you think of that quote, what have you done to accomplish that goal? What do you think a modern steakhouse looks like?
I think just fostering creativity amongst the team and everybody that's been a part of it, and all of the different culinary backgrounds that we have there. You look at a classic steakhouse and you're going to have a filet, you're going to have a ribeye, there's probably a baked potato on the menu. And we want to have those things because we want that old school feel. But we use a lot of modern techniques. We're bringing in a lot of different product now. A lot of steakhouses will conform to, one or two beef suppliers throughout their program. And we're really trying to expand on that as well. The Summer of Steak program that we've been recently running has showcased a lot of different ranchers around the state. And we hope to sort of continue to progress and reshape our menu to feature a lot of those as well. So, yeah, same thing, right? Technique, just different product, utilizing different seafood that isn't really being used in other, you'll see salmon on every menu, we do it sometimes, but we just like to branch out.
So tell me a little bit more about the intention behind the Summer of Steak. For people who aren't aware, the Committee Chophouse has been doing this thing every month where they offer a steak flight, and they feature a specific ranch. First it was Black Angus 1855, and Certified Piedmontese, and this month, as we're recording in August, it's Morgan Ranch. Mm-hmm. And it's been a lot of fun to see not only different ranches highlighted, but different cuts of beef from the animal. And it's amazing to me how I can taste the difference in not only the difference between different ranches, but just when you get to taste 3 or 4 different cuts at once, you really see the different tenderness, the different tastes, the different, even the way the meat caramelizes on the outside. What was the intention behind the Summer of Steak and highlighting these different ranches? So
the program itself was a really strong collaboration between quite a few people at the hotel, all the way up to our GM, from our marketing folks, and just from us on the culinary side of just, how can we generate some interest and see that if people are interested in coming to the Chophouse to try a lot of different things, rather than coming and say, well, I'm going to go have a ribeye, or I'm going to go have a filet. It's evolved too quite a bit. When we started with 1855, which has been our main
flagship, I would say.
Yeah, our flagship beef program. We wanted to make sure that we utilized that, and we've stuck more to your more well-known cuts. As to now in Morgan Ranch, we've used some cuts of meat that we haven't previously used. So it's evolved, right? It started as let's try this and see what happens. It was wildly successful, and now we're cool, there's interest, let's push a little bit, right? So we're really looking forward to September. Brandon found a really cool local ranch. I'll let him talk about that because he kind of fostered that relationship. So
yeah, so it's so as far as this program goes, it's been really fun because I'm a gigantic food nerd, and so like being able to showcase off these ranches and mine and Jason's personal relationships with these guys and these entire programs has been really fun. And I think it's kind of been a little surprising to some of our cohorts at the hotel of seeing that Jason and I do have these personal relationships with the ranchers, where as like Morgan Ranch, for example, I called them one afternoon and then the next day they were sitting in our doorstep and they were sitting at the table, like going over the program and literature and everything else. And then like for Morgan Ranch, for example, and Piedmontese, the main people of their actual ranch, they physically come and drop off the product for us. And like Morgan Ranch, for example, they're in-house butchers. They physically have came into the committee just to be able to see what we're doing. And they went to their owners and they were just like, oh my gosh, like the Committee Chophouse, like that is insane what they're doing. And to be able to have that type of feedback from the actual suppliers and from the ranch themselves has been amazing. But like with our final, like our anchor of this whole summer steak program, Plum Creek Wagyu, the owner and operator himself, Adam, was just randomly, like him and I were just chit-chatting one day and he was telling me a story and I was like, this is incredible. I'm like, you have your cattle just literally sit in your front yard? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, me and my kids, we go out there and we hand feed them. You know, the cows lick my kid's face and, you know, I know them all by heart. And he's like, I'm a part of the entire process from start to finish. And I was like, this is amazing. I was like, well, where are you located at? And like, what are you doing? And when he was telling me, he was just like, he's like, I've never been in a restaurant before. He's like, I've never done that kind of volume. I just do small sales here and there. I'm in some storefronts, but he's like, I've never been in a restaurant. And I was like, dude, I was like, we got to get you to Omaha. We got to get you out here. And then like 2 days later, he sent me and Jason this insanely generous care package of just his entire portfolio essentially. And we were just like, this is awesome. Like, this is like, you can taste the love, you can see the love, you can see the appreciation. The direct contact Adam and I have been having has been amazing. And he's been super helpful this whole way through. And that's why we kind of chose him as the anchor, is because he is less known, but he is so methodical. He is so involved in his every bit of his processing, to where like he actually even purchased this grading machine. There's only like 4 of them in the United States that actually grades Japanese Wagyu. And so like he has just fully embodied everything about his ranch and about his product. And it made it really easy for me and Jason to just be like, yep, this is somebody we want to involve ourselves with.
And it was a perfect fit too, right? Because, you know, we started with, you know, the certified Angus from 1855. Then we went into the Piedmontese beef, which is known for being very lean and grass-fed, grass-finished, right, with a lot of healthful properties. And then with Morgan Ranch, we're getting into the Wagyu sector, but it's the hybrid American Wagyu. And then now with Plum Creek Wagyu coming up in September is a full-blood Wagyu. So all of these ranches are distinctly different in the cattle that they're raising.
Now, I want to go back to something you said a couple minutes ago, because I find it really interesting, and is that most steakhouses and really most restaurants in general are going to have one beef purveyor. They're going to identify the one that they like the best, maybe that they have the best relationship with, maybe the one that just makes the most sense at their price point, and stick with that one. Mm-hmm. You guys have branched out a little bit, and you mentioned 1855 is kind of, that's the standard for you, but you've gone to these other ranches and you've experimented, and you said, hey, let's not just stick with one. Let's see what else is out there.
Yeah.
What led to that line of thinking?
Well, I think that's a pretty new line of thinking now that we've successfully, you know, instilled this program, because now we're thinking like outside the box. Okay, you know, we don't want to abandon our flagship and abandon that foundation, but we have the ability now, and I think the trust of our clientele, to go ahead and branch out. And I think that's how you keep progressing, right? Like, what new products can we get? What's new and exciting? How can we approach the classic steakhouse with a locavore mentality? That's sort of where we're at right now. So I think the future is exciting, and, you know, the more we are able to create these relationships and work with these local cattle people, you know, the better it's going to get.
Yeah, well, the craziest thing too is like in the previous history of most restaurants, like you always pick out that vendor and then they just do everything in their power to secure their product in your restaurant, and they always try to price negotiate or do something to make it more favorable for you to stick with them. Whereas what Jason and I have realized with these different ranchers, and once again, this I think has a lot to do with our relationship with them, is they're actually really excited. They're excited to be able to see what their product versus another product does, and how it was well received or whether it's not received. And and they're actually, none of them have ever had shown any kind of like ill will or like, or they wanted any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like preferential treatment?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And so like they've actually been really excited to see us be able to put multiple different farms from all across Nebraska on the menu, and they are completely like supportive of us, and they think it's going to be a really neat concept once we finally get there with it.
And there's difficulty in that from a business perspective because, yeah, you know, we do things, you know, fairly locally, right? As local as we can, but we also have corporate contracts that we have to fulfill and things like that because, yeah, we are part of a large hotel company that, you know, owns and operates multiple food and beverage outlets throughout the country. And so, you know, there's a lot of like commodity pricing, things like that we're expected to use. But for our particular restaurant, especially the Committee, we do have that freedom. And from, you know, a purchasing perspective, it can be difficult to meet, you know, food cost percentages and revenue streams when we do that. But, you know, it takes time to build that and make it make sense. So that's kind of in the process right now. And we're learning more about our business as we go. We believe in our product and our experience, and now it's really about honing all that in to make it all make sense. But for us, it's important to use Nebraska beef because we're here in Nebraska, right? So like Morgan Ranch, for example, their beef goes all over the world. I think a ton of it goes to Germany, is what he was saying, which I thought was really interesting.
About 80% goes to Germany.
But Morgan Ranch is in multiple Michelin star restaurants across the country.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, people know Morgan Ranch. That name is not, you know, it's not.
It's recognizable.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like
it's a brand.
It's like a Porsche. It's like the Porsche of the steak world kind of thing. Like,
but I think it's cool for us because like we can say like, yeah, we're using this beef that people love all over the country. Like it's right here. It's right in our backyard, basically. So it's just fun for us to be able to, you know, when we go to reprint menus and we can say our ribeye is from Morgan Ranch and our, you know, maybe our strip is from Piedmontese. I think that just makes the menu more exciting and more interesting, and will give people more incentive to return to try something else from a different part of the state.
Yeah, I think it's also fun to just showcase the history of Nebraska beef because, like, I mean, Grain Island, Burwell, you know, like these places that like people just see as a blip on the map, and it's just like, well, actually, it's like there's some amazing product, like Jason was just saying, like in Tokyo, in Singapore, and in certain parts of like China, like Morgan Ranch is their standard for American Wagyu, and like they're being used in multiple Michelin restaurants over in Asia, in Europe, and it's just like a lot of people, I think they just kind of take for granted because, like, you know, we can go to the grocery store anywhere in Nebraska and find, you know, certain different grades of beef, and it's like people just kind of get lost, I think, in the availability of it, and they forget that there is such a specialty niche market out there that literally is in our backyard, and some of it is just, you know, a stone's throw down the street, and to be able to showcase and access that, and to be able to show people that it's just like, well, you can actually go to a different grocery store, like what's the Piedmontese one out in West Omaha, you know?
Oh, the Mercado, yeah.
You can go out there and you can get some of the same cuts that we're offering, and we're going to just show you what you can do with it. But then to realize that it's like you don't have to go to Hy-Vee or, you know, Baker's or Sam's Club or something like that to get these products, that you can go to these smaller, more personalized storefronts and get this amazing product any day of the week. We're just going to show you what you can do with it.
What do you guys look for when you go to a ranch? If to say, like, to put your stamp on it and say, yes, this is a place that we want to highlight on the committee's menu. What are you looking for when you visit a ranch or when you talk to a rancher?
Oh, me personally, I look for the bags under their eyes. I look for the guy that, like, he's super, super tired, beat up, got mud on his boots, but it's still incredibly excited to talk about his product. Like somebody who, like, it's one thing to have someone to show up in, like, you know, a $3,000 suit and like wearing a super fancy watch to try to sell us something. But like when somebody shows up and, you know, for lack of a better term, they still have their work shit kickers on, and you could tell they got like their knees and their jeans are all worn out from actually doing their job. But then they put on their best shirt and then they come in and they sell us a product that they're still excited about. That's my immediate, like, that's what grabs my attention. It's not the guy that wants to call me or text me. It's the guy that wants to show up and he wants to prove that he is excited about his product, that he is 100% personally invested in it. And like, that's what gets me excited. That's what makes me want to further my interactions as well as my purchasing potential for this person. So
yeah, well said. I think, just to piggyback on that, the holistic approach, sustainability, just the treatment of the animals and the way that they approach their whole process, I think is super important.
Yeah, like, Morgan Ranch, for example, they stream feed their cows water, like, that's incredible that they specifically have one stream of water that pretty much produces all the water that all their cattle drink. And it's like, and it's probably the same water that's in their house too. And it's like, yeah, that's cool.
Well, that's they're out there, and that's one of the most eco-diverse parts of the country. The Sandhills, the Ogallala Aquifer, all the those spring-fed streams and something. It's like the best cattle grazing grounds and like probably in the world, or one of them at least. So it's just a really cool place to be. Probably my favorite part of Nebraska.
And I love the way that you highlighted a couple minutes ago, Jason, like just how different these ranches are. Like, Piedmontese beef is known for, it's super lean, and it's that's what they're known for. Not as much muscular fat, but not sacrificing flavor.
Right.
And then you've got American Wagyu mixed with Japanese a little bit in Morgan Ranch, and then Plum Creek is more full Japanese Wagyu, right?
Yep. So Morgan Ranch is about 70% to 30% American so it's Japanese to American, 70 to 30. And then, Plum Creek is 100%.
So, these are all very distinctly different. We're not even talking cuts of beef yet, but just animals themselves. Like, when you come into the chop house, you can have a very customizable experience. You're not only just picking which cut of steak do I feel like tonight, but it's like, oh, do I want a little bit of a leaner steak? Do I want a steak with some more marbling? Like, right. Most diners probably aren't going to go that deep into their decision making, but if somebody does want to come nerd out and really hone in on what they want in a steak dinner, they can do that here. Yeah,
it was cool to see, like, as soon as we got into the Morgan Ranch stuff this month, and we know, right, like the Wagyu's going to have that marbling, that intramuscular fat content. And so we know that that's going to be present in cuts of beef that typically maybe aren't if you're looking at other styles of cattle, right? So we're like, with this, let's try some new stuff, right? Let's break away from, filet, from ribeye. Let's do a bavette. Let's do a tri-tip, because we know that those which may be less, ideal from, like a certified Angus, they're going to have that intramuscular fat just because of that bloodline. And so they're going to be equally as tender and juicy and buttery as, like a prime filet.
One of, like, the biggest aha moments I had was I actually went into the Mercado a couple months ago, and I was looking at the different steaks, and I was talking with the guy there, and I was like, okay, what's a lesser known cut that's going to be awesome? And immediately he goes right to the hanging tender, and he's like, this is what we cook when we want a great steakhouse. And I'm like, I'm a disciple to that thing now. So, like, it has been so much fun to see you guys highlight different parts of the animal, not just the 3 or 4 that everybody's used to seeing on the menu time and time again. So each month, as you're putting the steak flight together, and again, the steak flight is 4 ounces of 4 different cuts of beef. It's just awesome. But how are you selecting which ones you want to highlight, especially taking into account, these specific attributes of each breed that you're highlighting that month?
Funny story about some of it is like Jason and I kind of have our own path that we take, and then when we actually sit down and we chit chat about it, so far I don't think we've only had 1 or 2 differences in our actual overall picks. But for, like, me personally, my process is I always try to look for, like, 1 or 2 familiar, and then I try to look for 1 or 2 uniques depending on the actual style of cattle, where it's like with Piedmontese, you got to take into consideration the lack of internal fat, and then with, like, 1855, with it being all natural and all American Black Angus, you kind of have a little bit more of you just have to take a different approach on everything of, like, whether or not, because you don't want to create the same textures, you don't want to create the same flavor profiles, even though they are the same cattle. Like, you want to be able to create that experience like you were talking about, like with this most previous one, where, like, you have different, you may have one cattle or one cow with 4 different cuts, but to be able to diversify what's on that plate, so you essentially just don't have like a sensory overload of the same texture or the same flavor, because then by the time you get to your fourth steak, it's just mute at that point. So I try to look at it in, with the texture, with the marbling content, as well as with just the grain of the way that the meat fibers themselves are looking, because otherwise, like I said, a little bit of chew here versus just having everything be so buttery. It just, you want to be able to keep people guessing with every bite.
Yeah. So. And you never know who's on the other end, right? Because some people are, experienced diners or foodies or whatever they want to call themselves, and some are completely clueless to what, could be the difference of these things. And that's, we kind of started out pretty conservatively with 1855 because we wanted to be approachable enough, because we really wanted to have a good gauge of, is this something that people are truly interested in coming to experience? And when we realized that it was, and very quickly we realized that, then we're like, okay, now we can branch out. Kind of like I was talking earlier about, once we knew we were getting into the Wagyu, that we know like how delicious and fatty it is, that's when we can break away from the more well-known cuts. So it's evolved. It's like it really has. Like, we went into this thing with a general idea, and its success has allowed us to really continue to kind of push the envelope on what we do. And we have a meeting today actually to finalize Plum Creek for September, so we're excited for that.
Can't wait.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, pushing the envelope, that's just something that you guys have done ever since you opened. I mean, I think as recently as a couple of years ago, and a lot of people would probably still think this now, but when people think like Omaha Steakhouse, they're thinking the Drover, they're thinking Casio's, they're thinking Johnny's Cafe, Brother Sebastian. It's just like these old school classic steakhouses. When you come in and you say, well, we're going to do something a little bit different, we're going to have a really dedicated seafood program, we're going to highlight some cuts that, maybe you're not as used to, we're going to try and work with different breeds of cattle and not just have one. How do you get that message out there that you guys can provide the classic steakhouse experience, but if you want something a little bit more modern, this is the place to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, all those places you mentioned, by the way, I love the Drover.
They're fantastic.
I'll go to the Drover and sit in a wagon wheel and go to the salad bar twice and eat a whiskey ribeye and leave happy as a clam. I think our comp set of, whatever, for lack of a better term, like 801, Mahogany, some of the more high-end, finer dining, expensive steakhouses, those are the ones that we want to stay relevant. We want to compete. We want to put our best foot forward. We want to be the best of those best places. So that's our motivation, right?
I think for me, personally, I enjoy the fact that a lot of our business comes from actual people that live here in Omaha. Even though we are attached to this beautiful hotel, we have a lot of rooms available and everything. Like Omaha tends to be our biggest backer for everything. We get a lot of people that come in for special occasions, date nights. One of our favorite sayings, when we look through our reservation book in the committee is do we have a lot of big parties tonight, and how we go about that? Or if we see that we have a lot of 2 tops or 4 tops, it's okay, we have date night in the committee, something let's do something cool with this. And it's just really fun to be able to see that Omaha is really our big supporter, which tells me that we're doing a good job. Out of all those options that they have available to them, a lot of the classic options, a lot of the higher end options, and a lot of the really well-established options, that people still choose to continue to drive further down to Omaha and then stop at our restaurant and have their specific night with us. So the support of the city has definitely been that's what helps me sleep at night. It lets me know that we're doing a good job.
Yeah, our other restaurants and they're largely driven by the hotel's occupancy and how many people are there. And that does increase our volume in the committee, but for the most part, it's local business. So we're hugely appreciative of that, and we just want to keep things exciting so that people will continue to come back. And it's you have to walk that fine line of we got to stay really consistent, right? That's why people love 801, because they go there, and every time they go there, it's as good as the last time, right? And I think that's what they thrive on. For me, it's I want the same thing, but I want it to be better than it was last time. So that's the big challenge, and I think that's what will make anybody the best of the best.
You said something really interesting a minute ago, Brandon. You said like looking at the reservation book and you see a bunch of two tops and you're like, oh, it's date night. We got a lot of couples in tonight. Mm-hmm. Let's do something really cool with it.
Yep.
What did you mean by that? Like, what can you change if you see this is a heavy date night at the Chophouse?
Well, one thing that when I first came on with the hotel, our owners actually specifically sat me down with Jason, and they're like, we want to make this place unforgettable. We want to make this place really unique and really fun, but we also want to make it intimate. And so, with the development of the restaurant, the menu, the staff training, and everyone kind of got themselves into a really nice spot. So we started doing complimentary related things to where it's just, we recognize that people are coming to us, they're expecting to have this experience, they're expecting to have this unforgettable night. For some people, it may be, they're celebrating their anniversaries, or they're about to propose, or it's a birthday. So we start doing little things like little amuse-bouches, where it's just like little table welcomings, little complimentary like sparkling toast, or like we may just do like a custom dessert for somebody. One thing that I've always done is I've always been very, very friendly and comfortable going out to the dining room. So whenever we have people that have, these special occasions, I'll go out and I'll talk to the table and I'll be like, what are you celebrating? What can we do to make something unique for them? And then I'll go back to the kitchen and I'll just whip something up. And we really try to help curate these experiences for these people to where like they do want to be able to go home and tell their friends and tell their families of the amazing experience. And a simple example, like I said, would just be having the chef go out to the table and just say, thanks for spending your evening with us. This is amazing. What are you celebrating? Or to be able to go out to like someone on their bicentennial anniversary and be like, congratulations, that's amazing. I hope that me and my girlfriend can get there someday, kind of thing. Like, just to make it personal. And just that little personal touch, I think, is something that's unique that we have the ability to do that a lot of the bigger restaurants may miss out on. But I personally believe that it's an important part of our identity.
It's the smaller details, right, that make an experience stand out. And we're only able to do that because of the hard work and dedication of everyone else in the restaurant that's doing everything in their power on a daily basis to make that experience shine, right? Like from our service staff, our bar staff, our managers, our cooks. We've got a really great new general manager in Josh Nelson that just joined us, who I think is going to thrive and really push everything from a service perspective. Brandon and I, in our success at the hotel, have been able to move up and do different things and have put Brandon Nyberg, who's now our chef de cuisine in the committee, in a really good position to be successful too. So, it's just fun to like be able to do the things that Brandon's talking about, which is go out to the dining room, chit chat, throw a meat tornado at somebody on a really special day. That's something that we've been doing a lot of lately that people truly love. It's just a giant steak flight, kind of on steroids, right?
Yeah, I used to watch
family style.
Meat tornado.
Yeah,
that is like the coolest thing I've ever heard.
So I used to watch the show Parks and Rec a lot, and so when I took over the restaurant, I hung the Ron Swanson Pyramid of Greatness in the kitchen. And if you know anything about the show, it's just got some really good, funny one-liners on it, but then it also has some really important, like I guess like adult mentality kind of things. But one of the things that stuck with me was the scene that like the Andy guy sitting there trying to like win over Ron. And, I look at it kind of from the same thing as some of our guests. Some of them come in a little apprehensive, this is expensive, or maybe, they're not familiar with our product. And so one day we just happened to have a bunch of out-of-town guests, and they weren't sure what they wanted to do. And I was like, well, you ever heard of this thing called a meat tornado? And they're like, from Parks and Rec? And I'm like, yeah. And so I was like, if you guys want, I was like, I'll just close your menus right now, and I'll just go back to the kitchen if you trust me. And they were like, don't let us down. And they closed their menus, handed it to me, and then me and Jason put together this like 24-inch platter with like all the best cuts that we have, with some of the most unfamiliar cuts that we have, with like all these different garnishes. And we just kind of coined it the meat tornado, and it's kind of been like this underground thing, but like it's to the point where it's like, you unbutton your pants, you undo your belt, and you just kind of sit back and you just take that big breath at the end of your meal, and you're just like, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's the ultimate meat sweat platter, right? We kind of had to change the name there for a couple of weeks after all the severe weather we had.
Oh yeah,
PTSD in the dining room. But yeah, it's just things like that. Again, we can't do those things without having that foundation, and I think that's where all the hard work shines. Is that no matter what's going on elsewhere in the hotel, we might have a 200-person wedding. We might have 2 of those on top of each other. And, you go down into the chop house and it's still just running as it should, a well-oiled machine. So that wasn't easy. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears by a lot of people. And we're just really excited that we are where we are, but we're not satisfied.
What you just described sounds like a beef omakase.
Pretty much.
Like, you just go in, you say, "Chef, I trust you. I'm good. I don't even want to look at this menu. Just serve me whatever you feel like." And yeah,
it's actually been
amazing.
It's been really fun, and like Jason was just saying, like with us being attached to the hotel, like there may be a lot of pressure in the air just because we have so much hotel occupancy guests, or like the other restaurant might be just jamming with 150 people in it on top of these weddings. But like the nice thing is like when we're done going through and dealing with those situations, we can go down to the committee and all that pressure is just relieved, and like you don't even feel it in that restaurant. And being able to go out to the dining room and have guests that have never been with us or come to us from San Francisco once a month for their client meetings, and to just have them be so confident to just be able to close their menus and hand them over and just be like, just treat me right, chef. It's really fun. It's really nice, but it's taken a lot of years to get that comfort with our clients to be able to trust us to do that. But we even have people that come in from out of town, and in their guest notes for their reservations, they'll just be like, "You guys had this thing on the menu. It was really awesome. I'd love to be able to have it." And so for stuff like that, we'll actually even go out of our way, and we'll make the dish that used to be on the menu just for their reservation, just knowing that like they're coming from New York City and they're here visiting their daughter who's going to like Creighton University or something like that, and we'll just try to help recreate that same experience they had a year ago, but with some of the new stuff that we're doing today.
That's incredible.
It's fun. It's a unique, and my entire career I've never had this much freedom to be able to create these individual moments as frequently as we do at the committee. So it's been a lot of fun. It's also been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun.
That being said, creating those moments and people celebrating special occasions at the committee is fantastic, right? But we also want it to be a place that people can feel like they can come to whenever they want. It doesn't have to be a special occasion. Come down, sit in the Cottonwood room, have a great martini, have a burger, come to the committee, try the nightly special, just come for a whiskey strip, whatever, right? Like it doesn't have to be a special occasion. We want people to feel comfortable going there for a business dinner, or just on a random Wednesday. Like, I'm hungry, I feel like having a steak. Where should I go? We should be the spot. That's, we want that.
Yeah. That's something that you mentioned on the last podcast. You said we want to be able to touch on all demographics in one space. And I really marinated on that line because I think that that's really hard to do. And it's dangerous because if you try and go straight down the middle, you might end up not giving the experience to what either end of the extremes wants, and then you miss on everyone. Mm-hmm. But like, I noticed the last time I came into the committee, I mean, yes, you're going to have your expected couples having date night.
For sure.
There was a table full of businessmen. I would imagine they were discussing, business deals and stuff. And then there was a table with a family and a kid wearing basketball shorts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I was like, that's amazing. I probably wouldn't think to take my kid to a place like this, but he fit in. Like, it didn't look out of place at all. So I think you guys have found a way somehow to create an environment and a menu that is approachable for all these different demographics without seeming like it's missing on any of them. Sure. How do you create that environment?
For me personally, this was one thing that was, I think, a challenge, just mainly that I put on myself, but we don't have vegetarian or vegan options totally built into the menu, and we definitely don't have like a kids friendly menu in certain people's eyes. And so what I've done to like culinarily challenge myself is when somebody has dietary restrictions or preferences, or when they have small children that come in, I like to just essentially just go out and chit chat with them. And just like we have kids that come in, especially like people from out of town or out of the country, they'll be like, we're staying in the hotel, we're only here for a day. My kid just wants a grilled cheese. And I'm like, well, how fancy of a grilled cheese do you want? Because we can go crazy with it, and we can have some of the best cheese in the world, or we can just make it nice and simple. And I think just like being able to have that open dialogue with our guests has really created that opportunity for comfort. So like where they know that they, even if it's not on the menu, just being able to have the discussion at the table with either the service staff or the culinary staff, and to know that they're not going to be shunned or mistreated or even just kind of like scoffed at, where it's just like a lot of restaurants where it's like, if it's not on the menu, you can't have it. And it's like, well, we have a full service restaurant. We have a talented culinary staff. We're not that busy. Like, let's see what we can do for you.
Yeah, we're here to cook.
Yeah. So, and I think that's been helpful for me, helpful for our clientele, our guests. And I know our service staff, like it's a challenge for them to be able to come in and it makes them responsible for being able to read the room, read the table, to be able to essentially just to be able to help create what this clientele or these guests are actually physically looking for. Because sometimes, like you said, yeah, it's a business meeting and they just want their meat and potatoes and they want to move on to the next thing. And then sometimes it's a family with 4 generations worth of people sitting at the table, and you know, grandpa wants this and the little kid wants that and everybody else wants something else in between. And it's been a fun challenge, but it's also a challenge that our service staff has really, really, really thrived on making sure that they're capturing the entire essence of what these people are looking for, whether it's a random Tuesday or whether it's somebody celebrating something really important.
Okay, now I gotta briefly, we can get back to the chop house, but I gotta pull you guys out of the chop house briefly, out of the dungeon. We're gonna walk up the stairs.
I'm never gonna live that down.
No, you're not. I'm gonna make 4 more references to it by the time we get out of here.
All right.
We're gonna walk up the stairs and we're gonna go to the Orleans room because I gotta talk to you guys about a Reuben.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
As we record this,
you know, I actually made your Reuben. I came into work and I was like, oh my God, I'm like, that's Dan. And someone's like, oh, he's here for the Reuben. And I was like, I'm not going to go talk to him, but I'm going to make him awesome Reuben.
Oh, you did make me an awesome Reuben. Holy cow, that thing was special. So in the Orleans room, that's where people can order the Reuben. And the Blackstone Hotel historically is where the Reuben originated. So, I mean, you guys had to have that on your menu.
Oh, yeah.
But you want to have, like, a signature Reuben. Like, this is the Reuben of the Reubens in Omaha. As you're building this thing from the ground up, like, how did you construct it and decide this is how, like, this is going to be our standard bearer sandwich? Here's what it is.
Oh, man. So this has a lot to do with Jason, and then one of our longest sous chefs that we've had, Mitchell. But I've watched those two guys go through multiple evolutions of the sandwich to get it to where it's at now. So I have no claim to fame over what we've done.
We tried to stay true to like what it, you know, because like we have what would be called the original recipe that we've kind of looked at, and we do. We keep it pretty classic, right? We just use a really, really good product. We make our own sauerkraut, the Thousand Island. Everyone likes to joke that there's 1,000 ingredients in it because it takes them forever to make it. There's only, I think,
that's what we do
like
for our
19.
stages.
I can never remember.
I think you said 16.
Yeah, something like that. But the prep cooks are always like, I got to make Thousand Island. Anyway, it's just a solid sandwich. I think we've won the Reuben debate 3 years in a row now.
Yep.
We're eagerly awaiting your
final
rankings. And we actually just decided recently, because we always want to lean into that. It's definitely like a huge part of the history of the hotel. So we are now offering doubles and also triple stacks. So you have to come back before you do your final ranking on the Reuben and come have a triple stack. So if Katz's Deli in New York City, and the monster like pastrami.
Come on!
Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it. It's so far. I've only seen one person successfully tackle the triple.
It's a lot of meat.
It is. It's a delicious sandwich. I do not recommend wearing white that day. Maybe bring a bib, but it is a substantial sandwich.
Yep. Okay, so when you say like double set, it's not like just putting more bread in there.
No more bread.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no. It's not a Big Mac.
Sandwiches
not a
like
club
that.
sandwich, right?
I'll
it's just more meat.
I will
more
die
cheese.
on this hill. No one ever ate a sandwich and said, "You know what this sandwich needs? More bread.
Another piece of bread. Yeah.
Give me more sauce. Give me more meat. Get that extra bread out of there." Okay,
100%. It's just like what you think when you're thinking New York deli. It is just. It is the same 2 pieces of bread, just with a lot more going on. But like the triple, Like we have to have specialty. We have to have different skewers to be able to skewer that sandwich because the ones that we originally have just don't make it to the bottom. So like it's so we have like 18-inch skewers sometimes. Sometimes we just only need to use the 12-inch ones. But it is depending on how fluffy everything gets. It is a sometimes I've seen it as tall as your laptop. So
holy
yeah,
smokes.
it's a legit like just over a pound of meat. Not to mention all the sauerkraut sauce. The bread itself is each piece of bread is a half-inch thick. So I mean, it's a monster of a sandwich.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a little pressure right now on our marketing team and HR and our GM Dana to make us some T-shirts. So if somebody conquers the triple stack Reuben, they go home with one. So, yep, calling you guys out right now. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Make it happen.
Calling out coworkers.
Yes,
That's good podcast.
Gotta finish all your fries too. That plate better be clean.
I definitely want to come back and experience that because that's been like so. For people who don't know, we're recording this in August, mid-August, and I am on a hunt for Omaha's best Reuben. I've been to 18 different restaurants so far. I've had 20 different Reubens. I've got at least 2 more. But, like, I keep having the conversation with people. They're like, have you ever been to New York? Have you been to Katz's Deli? No, it's on my bucket list, but I see these pictures, these sandwiches that are just piled high. Oh, yeah. And like you said, it's meat on meat on meat. Yeah. It's none of the, no filler in there.
Yep.
So that, like, the idea that I could get that here,
oh yeah,
you guys will be seeing me again.
Yeah, Jason was sitting there one day, and we're sitting in his office, and he's like, I think we're gonna go for it, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, we're gonna do the double, and we're gonna do the triple, and I was like, no one's going to order that. And he goes, oh, yeah. He's like, people are going to love this thing. And then we started talking about Katz's Deli, and he's like, this is going to be the next thing. He's like, I promise. So, yeah, so we're excited to push it. We're excited to get it out in the world.
Well, if you ever need help promoting it.
I was going to say.
right here.
You know a guy.
Yeah, you know a guy. But I want to get back to the original Reuben itself because, you talked about you want to stay true to what the Reuben is. And there are some restaurants, trust me, I've seen all spectrum. Some that are like super, this is sauerkraut, Swiss, Thousand Island, rye bread. That's what it is. And then there are some that really play with it and put their own twists on it to the point where it's kind of like, this is a great sandwich, but it's got beets and horseradish. Is it a Reuben anymore? Yeah. Like I'm enjoying it, but I don't know if it's actually what you what you say it is. Real quick. You put a couple twists on it. You guys use brisket that is brined, vacuum sealed, and sous vide overnight.
Yep.
Use Gruyere instead of Swiss, and you have a little mustard on there, which is not traditional.
No.
Yet, you have a delicious sandwich, and it still tastes very much like a Reuben. It's a great representation. How do you find that balance as you're making your signature Reuben of like tradition, but also modernizing a little bit, and saying, I think that there's a way, if we don't stray too far from the original recipe, we can stray a little bit and make it even more delicious.
Yeah, well, so the Orleans room in its early its early concept, it was very largely sort of a French influence thing. When the hotel first opened, we did a lot of like French country style stuff, like pâtés and a lot of charcuterie and stuff like that. And, over the years it's evolved. So the sandwich in its inception back then was the Gruyere cheese. It was very Swiss, like the fancier French border version of the Swiss cheese. And, the sandwich itself is all about like, it's just like really well balanced, right? You have like the super fatty richness of the corned beef. You've got that really flavorful bread and the Black Russian rye. The sauerkraut that we make in-house is just very classic pungent sauerkraut. And then we actually mix that with a Thousand Island. So it kind of makes this like creamy slaw almost. And then like everything just melts together. Yeah. And then the house mustard that we make is a blend of a bunch of different things that we kind of.
There's some star-studded stuff in our mustard that I think the recipe probably will never ever leave the hotel. But like a prime example would be is like we put olives in our mustard. It would be like a little sneaky, like a little insider on it, and then we do a couple other ways to enhance the mustard instead of just using a classic like Dijon or whole grain. We blend. I think it's like 12 ingredients that we actually use to just physically make that mustard that is only really used for that sandwich, just to kind of help create that that balance in between everything.
And it's just like the things we do in the committee, right? Like, how do you make a steak a really special steak without it just being a steak on a plate, right? And it's the seasoning, it's the technique, it's the quality of the product that you use. That's what makes that sandwich shine. It's not so much that it's just like this super fancy version of it. It's just really well done. And we stand behind that. The last 3 years we've won the Great Reuben debate. And, you'll see all the restaurants in Blackstone do all sorts of crazy Reuben specials and Reuben pizzas
egg rolls
and Reuben tacos and Reuben egg rolls. And, for in large part, I've just been like, no, we're not doing any of that. We're going to stand behind our sandwich and we're going to win this thing every year. And we have. So it speaks for itself.
It's a phenomenal sandwich.
Oh yeah. No, even our, even our staff, we haven't really done anything different to it in years, and even our staff still enjoys eating it. Like the same people that make it every day still will every once in a while sit down and enjoy a Reuben, which to me speaks volumes over the product. Because in the kitchen world, like when you do the same thing every day, all day long, you just are like, man, I don't want that anymore.
You think after 4 years, I'd be like, ugh,
Be sick of it, yeah.
Yeah.
but I'll still eat one here and there.
Yeah.
I remember eating that sandwich and finishing it. Like, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but I remember as I'm eating that, I was like, I feel bad for the next one that I have.
That's perfect.
Because it's not going to stand up to this, and none have so far. I'm just going to go ahead and give that little spoiler
I
right
love
there.
that. Yeah, well,
Still got a couple more. The final rankings have yet to come out, but
I mean, the one thing I think that we do to really showcase everything is we try to make sure that every bite, especially like with a sandwich like that every bite, first to last, has the same amount of ingredients on it to the same amount of flavor. So that way you're not, the worst thing you'd ever do is pick up a sandwich and bite it and all the toppings fall out of you. Or like, so, I mean, you'd
be surprised how many you take that first bite and all the meat just comes out. Yep. It's just like, man.
Yep. You got to be able to bite through it. You got to be able to enjoy every bite all the way through. Or you get to the end of the sandwich and it's just all you have left is bread. Mm-hmm. And so like, I think that's the other part of it is just the staff actually taking the time to make sure that every bite is as close to identical as possible. So that way you actually can enjoy the entire thing.
Sound structure.
Yes, exactly. It's got a great foundation, and yeah.
Okay. Enough with Reubens. I mean, I could talk about Reubens all day, but we're gonna move off that. I want to go back to the first time that you came on the podcast again. This was in February of 2022. You had a quote. You said, "Brandon has a lot of plans of what he wants to do and the story we want to tell moving forward, and we plan to do that together." So now we're 2.5 years into the future from that quote. As you listen back and think about what you guys have accomplished in the last 2.5 years, how do you think you've most evolved since then?
I'm like blushing right now. You really said that? Man.
Either that or I just made it up, and you can pay me afterwards.
Hey man, I'll take it. I'll take it. That's that soundbite's going in
well,
like
I
a
think
wedding
that goes
video
back
someday.
to when, yeah, right. I feel like, the evolution's been insane. I mean, Brandon really took it and ran with it. And he's really good at that because he's passionate about it, right? And if he's going to do something, he's going to go all in on it. And I'm maybe a little more methodical in some of my processes than Brandon, and I think that again, that's how we work well together. I can be like, hey, whoa, what the hell is this? Like, pump the brakes, or like, yeah, this is good, but it could be better, right? And just sort of like play off of each other with ideas and, great idea, great concept, but let's rethink it a little bit before we actually move forward with it. He's very good at getting the team up to speed and demanding that the standard remain high and pushing the team to a point where, they're going to work as hard as they can and care as much as they can about everything that they have going on and keeping them organized. And so that allows somebody like me to really kind of take a step back and sort of watch what's happening and then say, okay, cool, we're in a really good spot. Let's think about this, or let's think about doing this. And then, then we have those conversations. So it's very, Brandon's very hardcore boots on the ground, kind of the field general, right? Just like getting it done, putting in the work, schmoozing the guests, which I think is probably his favorite thing.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, but
it's always nice to be told you're doing a good job.
But yeah, it's just we've come a long way, and again, it's been a roller coaster. There's been high times, there's been low times, but I think that's where greatness comes from. It's trial and error. It's accountability. It's
I think checking
humility.
I was just going to say the checking of the ego. That is one thing that I think has been a very, very beneficial part to both of our professional career, especially working together and being friends. Is being told that it's not as good as it could be, or being told that what you're doing needs to stop. And being able to swallow that and understand that it's all coming from the right place and it's all business minded, and to be able to pivot and to not hold that grudge and to just take that criticism and to be able to improve on it, I think has been our biggest thing. Is because there's some times where I get a little bit too far outside of the box and I need to get wrangled back in, and Jason does a really good job of doing it in a way that's not destroying of my ego and or my like ruining my day. And there's times where Jason will just say like one or two words and just be like, all right, go make magic out of that. And then it's been really fun, because like there has been a lot of evolutions of the menu, some micro changes throughout the whole last couple of years, some big flips, even all the way down to one of the biggest things Jason and I did was we changed our meat purveyor. Like within the first 6 months of him and I taking over, we changed from our opening beef purveyor to where we're at now, and then that was just the catalyst of just being like, okay, like people are well receiving some of the changes and some of the developments, and then we just started snowballing, and then we found our groove and we found a sweet spot, and we've been able to essentially settle back a little bit more and make more micro changes, a little bit more refinement, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But yeah, it's really
in 2021, and it was like, I want to say it was May of 2021. I had a foot out the door. I mean, we were disorganized. The beef program was
expensive.
It was unstable. It was incredibly difficult to manage. The hotel was understaffed largely. We were coming out of COVID. It was hard. I mean, it was not. It's night and day right now, right? It's a 180-degree turn. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of time and effort, but the change was slow at first, and then once we really had we felt like we had our feet on the ground, we were like, let's hit the gas, right? Let's go. We're not going to wait around. And I think bringing a guy like Brandon in, we can get our feet on the ground, but when it's time to hit the gas, I know he's ready to go. So I think that was the biggest reason that he was my first phone call, right? Like it was like there's one person I know right now that could step into this restaurant and completely help me turn it around and then make it, one of the best steakhouses in the state, hopefully in the region.
Well, the turnaround that you guys have made and what you've created is something that's really impressive. And, it is something where, if somebody wants that classic steakhouse dinner, they can come into the committee and you guys will deliver that to them in an excellent manner. But they can come in and get great seafood. They can come in with the family. They can come in for date night and get a personalized experience. They can come in and get a meat tornado.
Oh, yeah.
Or they can go upstairs and then get an amazing Reuben. And I think that versatility, that's something that's really hard to find, and that you guys have been able to do that and now do it consistently just speaks to that awesome foundation you were talking about. So people, get here. Like, when you think of the Committee Chophouse, don't think that it has to be like fancy date night or anniversary or anything. Yes, you can absolutely go have a great celebration there.
Oh, yeah.
But it can just be, I've gone on Tuesday nights.
As I say, we had a guy come in town from Mississippi, and he just ordered 4 dozen oysters, ate his 4 dozen oysters, and then left.
There you go. Get to the committee. Go order 4 dozen oysters and a pastrami sandwich that is as tall as my laptop. You're going to have a good time. Brandon and Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show. I could talk to you guys for hours. I know you're busy. You got stuff to get back to. You gave the show an hour of your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you very much for having us.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.
Heck yeah.